Okay, well, hello to everybody. I'd like to tell you something about stress and diseases, but basically on how to reduce stress. That sounds on itself as a very old topic, and maybe it is. Let me see why yeah. But I'd like to do that using resonances. Obviously, this whole theme is been around for many thousands of years. Actually, if we look in all types of literature and also practices, you see yoga has been around for many thousands of years with this idea and going to cemeteries and recently more, we are doing the work, the homeopaths, but also the holistic doctors. But I think in my practice, I found out that if stress disappears, health arrives just probably immediately. And still, I was using a lot of techniques and insights and stuff, but I found out it was very difficult to have good results, although I was using the best technology available in my eyes. So I started to research what is going on, why there should be some sort of a missing link there. I have to start my clock as well, otherwise forget about it. I could talk for hours about this subject. So actually, talking about stress, I want to make a short introduction. But if we talk about stress, it's kind of a container word lately. What does it really mean? And what is the content of stress? Well, first of all, it is a reaction of a system to a life-threatening situation. We should keep that in mind. So there is this tiger coming towards you and he thinks you're going to be his dinner. So this is a life-threatening situation. It turns out if you look around us in nature, that it is a universal thing. It happens at cells, any cell, any plant, any animal. And maybe it's not new, but we have to look into it. So, and then we found out that not only that this universal thing also deals with humans, but we have a next level. We have also a psychological thing when stress can appear, and this is not the level of the tiger, but this is the level of is there a scratch in my car? What do the neighbors think of it? Will I have enough money to buy a new clothes? Is my child at the right school? You know, a lot of different issues, but it's psychological of nature. If you look into stress, you come to the point that you see that a stress reaction is dealing with the past. So in the moment, basically, there is almost never stress unless there is this tiger appearing in front of you. But we are a result of the past, and the past has many different levels. First of all, we have this genetic part, obviously, your family, etc., etc. So what happened in the family is also related to your life. We're talking about epigenetics. If the stress has been with your grandfather, who was a soldier in the Second World War, it can be still in your life. And it's not a genetic part, but a epigenetic. Or in your terms, it's miasm, I think. And obviously, there is also the experiences of the individual. So there are different levels, and we come to that later again. But it's good to see that that there are different levels of stress being introduced in your life. And that all comes to a survival strategy based on expectations. So the expectations are, let's say you go on the holiday and it's raining. It doesn't meet your expectations because you want to be in the sun on the beach. And that creates stress in a way, a psychological level, obviously. And there we have the stress. So the past is there. And if we look a little bit more deep into the past, you can see that it's not only the epigenetic, your family, but it goes back way, way, way longer. And we're talking about evolution. Let's look at the brain. We have different parts in the brain, and this part of the brain, which is called the reptilian brain, is maybe 500 million years old, or maybe older, but let's say 500 million years. It deals with survival. It deals with being eaten or eat. It deals with the 5 F's of this life. I come to that later. So it's good to see that it's a very basic level. In evolution, you see something showing up maybe 100 million years later. And that means that in evolution, species needed emotional caring. If you go back to the reptile, it puts its egg in the sand and leaves. So there's no emotional binding with what comes later, but there's, they have to look for themselves. Later on in this evolution, for example, with birds, they start taking care of their breed. And to do that, you have a caring, you need something which is called caring, emotions. And that's from a total different nature, I'd say. And the third one is the cognitive thinking part. So the cortex, where there is the I awareness. From there, we think about, hey, what's going on here? I am looking good, or I'm not looking good, or I have this emotion, etc., etc. Almost every sentence we speak starts with I. So we're very much living from this part of the brain. But if you look at it, there's this other parts as well. And actually, the question is, if we use all types of methodology and therapies and stuff to deal with stress, do we take all these parts in account? You have to look and see, well, the reptilian brain, the brainstem, is basically the source of all stress reactions. And to name them again, it is, and we all know it, I think, but to name it again, it's the fight reaction, the flight, the freeze, the food, but also the fornication, and the other word is fuck. So we need to eat, we need to breathe, otherwise we're not there anymore as a species. So these are the 5 reactions we're living from. And the interesting part is this is non-personal. There is no I awareness at all at that level. And there's something else is very interesting as well. That this very old software, which is running our life, is pre-verbal. A reptilian animal has no language in any other form. So if we're using language in our ways to help people to get rid of types of stress, as long as we're talking, it doesn't make sense. The reptilian brain doesn't understand it at all. It doesn't listen to the content of language. The only way this part of the brain is communicating is through movement, but that's mean like, hello, I move my hand, that has an effect. Odor, the oldest memory we have, and resonance. This is the way we have to talk with the reptilian brain. Other parts are not working at this level. So if we want to deal with stress, and we're talking holistic, obviously, like we're all holistic workers in a way, you need to have the 3 levels, the cognitive level. We're talking from the cognitive part now. We understand that this is going on, and we make a plan to stop the stress in a way. For example, you want to stop the stress, and the flight reaction to that stress is smoking or drinking. Well, you first start with a plan. The plan is not to go to a bar or not to buy, for example, alcohol or cigarettes. But we all know the emotions, that's the next level, they tell you differently. They say, well, today it's maybe a good day for just 1 drink, and tomorrow I'll stop, or I stop 1 cigarette. as we can understand now, looking at this graph, you see the instinct part is maybe dealing in a different way. They look at, this part looks at the situation, and it appears as to be very, aggressive. So that part of the brain says you have to fly in a relaxed mode, which is taking a drink or a cigarette, or you have to fight, for example. And obviously this form of fighting is not like fighting or hitting somebody, but maybe with your mouth. So you're getting your right, you are the one. You see, I said you this and this is going to happen. I'm right here. So this is also a fighting part. So holistically, we have to use the three parts. And now I'll leave the physical part next to it. But of course, this is all part of this oneness we are. But in this conversation, I'd like to skip that part a little bit. So we have the cognitive and the emotional part, which are kind of a personal part of our lives. We know what we know what we experience, the emotion. We know that I am sitting behind this computer. But basically, as we saw in a few slides before, the reptilian brain is the one in control. 24/7, it's controlling our lives. If you're asleep, your instinct isn't. And we know, for example, if there is a mother with a very young child, she sleeps, the child gives one small kick, and the mother wakes up. That's the instinct. It's our survival mechanism. And that's the most important part. And when I looked into this whole issue, having not the best results I wanted to have with my clients, I thought we were overlooking this part. That's my conclusion after many years of looking at it and working with people. And that means that we have to focus on the brainstem to start with, to get rid of the stress in our lives. And I think we haven't done that enough. We were looking in the cognitive parts, in the emotional work, etc., but we forgot about the instinct, maybe because it's also a difficult part of the brain to talk to. And as you saw, we had movement, odor, and resonance. That last part is what we like, because we're experts as homeopaths. I'm not a homeopath, by the way, but you guys are all experts in using resonances. And the interesting part is they're very simple and plain. So as Roma said, I'm a part of the ARIA-F team, and I met them for many years ago. And I found out that Harry and Peter and other folks were doing a lot of research in the field of malaria, diseases, the HIV. They were working under very difficult circumstances, war areas, people who were suffering from earthquakes. And I saw that they were very successful. And I got to the point that I heard a story that once they were using the malaria resonances in refugee camps, and at some point it didn't work well. And they found out that the stress was so high among these people that they had to use a resonance against this war trauma or this earthquake trauma, losing everything. And that was the opening. And I met them at that period of time and said, well, wait a minute, if these resonances for these people are working well, they should work for my clients, because the stress is non-personal. It's got nothing to do with how they experience the things, but it's how the brainstem is looking into the world. And if it's threatening, you get this type of stuff. So I start using it among my clients, first of all, among myself, my family, etc., but then among clients. And because that was also very interesting, because the stress, and also malaria, but let's keep it to the stress, is kind of a genus epidemicus situation. It's non-personal, it's all over the place. It was interesting to see that if you use one remedy against this endemic disease, and disease is, another word for disease here is stress. in the Western world, it's already going on for the last 50 years, I think. You see a lot of stress coming into our societies. It's not disappearing. Actually, it's, you know, it's getting higher and higher. And I guess it's the same in all our countries. So the stress is a collective thing, and basically their origin is non-personal, which is very interesting. So then these things came together. The work of RRF in Africa, among many people, kids, schools, etc. You saw some of it in Roma's presentation. And I started to work with Peter Chappell on these resonances in the area, in the realm of stress, not in the realm of diseases. I'm very much interested in the stress, which, if you look well, is before there is a disease, there's always stress in some sort of form. Well, and we see that if you use a resonance, it neutralizes stress at the instinct level, at the deepest level. So now you start clearing the room, but you close the tap. So there's not new stress coming up. And that is the situation if you're working with the emotional and the cognitive brain and the physical body, that still the stress is coming. So, and if you start working at the instinct level, then the stress stops and you are much more successful doing this work at the emotional and the cognitive level, because we have to work at every level at the same time. We're holistic. So we found out that these resonances work, and of course through water and drug age, but also through the MP3. Roma told us about it. And it turns out that if you listen 10 minutes a day to these different resonances, at the time it was just one, but at the moment we have a whole series of stress-related resonances. And this is a nice picture of Dr. Emoto laboratory from one of our resonances. And we found out that it has a very significant impact on people. I want to show you a small research I did among healthy people in Holland. This is about healthy people. We used anti-stress. There were about 150 people participating, and approximately 75% of the people, the outcomes I just going to show you, are saying this. So of this 150 people, 75% state things like this after 5 weeks of listening. And the number one is that people declare that they have more relaxations in their lives. The number two, and remember, it's about 75% of the people. So it's not just a few, or basically the majority. Number two is that there's less emotional drama, which is very important, I guess. And the drama which still comes up in our lives is a lot shorter. So if you're angry, you're not angry for 3 hours anymore, but maybe for 3 minutes. And then you're able to see into the situation and act neutral. And the third one is that it was a lot easier to step out of the comfort zone. And that is something we need very badly at this moment. You know, we have to transform our lives. Corona is a nice, well, nice, it's not nice, but it wakes us up that we can't go on like this. So we all have to go out of our comfort zones, and it's gonna be a lot easier if you're not totally stressed. So these are the outcomes from this, and there's a lot more. And if you look into my presentation, you see some other stuff. For example, the fourth is more creativity, better relationships, better performances, etc. You're all invited to look at this if you want to. There's also on the website, which has a few Russian pages at the moment. Roma did a great job. He translated some of my pages at Max My Performance. Later on, I'll show you the link. And you're able to look into these researches. We also did research with kids having ADHD, which is, I guess, a stress-related symptom. We looked at people with alcohol addiction, and who were not drinking anymore after 20 years or so. So they came out of some sort of a program. So you look at these websites in English. In English, there's a lot more. I haven't translated all the, or Roma didn't translate all the researches, but there's the one I just mentioned. So you're very happy, welcome to look there. And what is interesting, I think, is that if you come into this realm of, well, Andreas said consciousness, oneness, and the different levels we're facing as human beings, I think we have to try ourselves first. And of course, for many diseases, you don't want to try first because you're not suffering from that disease. But I think everybody has some sort of stress level in his or her life. So you want to try it yourself. That's my suggestion. And you're welcome to do so, because at the Max My Performance site, this one and this one, on the right top side, there's free Corona and free anti-stress. The Corona, we'll get to this later, but you can ask for, after leaving your email address, you have a link sent to you, and you can listen yourself to this free anti-stress PPD resonance and see what it brings to your life. And I just mentioned also Corona, but of course that is something next to the stress conversation, and actually the only time I work with a disease, because it's around. ARF Source Medicines created this Corona resonance, which we don't know whether it works or not because we can't test. But I saw in my personal life several people who were suffering from Corona, and they were actually tested on Corona, and after 1 to 2 days they were totally symptom-free. So it's not a strong case, but there's a few individuals I know of. And if you go to this link going for your free anti-stress PPD, you can also listen to the free Corona. If you want to know more, of course, there's the website. And if you want to talk into Russian because you don't speak English good enough, or you just want to keep the conversation into Russian, this is the email address where you can talk your own language. Well, I hope this was a very small piece of the action, but it was hopefully interesting for you to listen to and to try it on in your life, and maybe with working with your clients as an extra tool into your work. Thank you very much.
Onno, thank you very much for your presentation.